It happened in a blink-one reckless remark that shattered Disney dreams, enraged die-hard fans, and put Hollywood's newest it girl on the cancellation conveyor belt. Rachel Zegler, the fresh-faced star handpicked to revive Snow White, opened her mouth and a tsunami hit. Overnight, #FireRachel was trending, legacy animators were publicly fuming, and insiders whispered that execs had already scheduled crisis calls. Why? Because in a single interview, Zegler didn't just question a beloved classic she torched. She called the prince a stalker, branded the 1937 fairy tale outdated, and promised a girl boss rewrite that no one asked for. But the fallout didn't stop at Snow White. Within hours, conservative commentators, Disney purists, and even the son of the film's original director piled on, accusing her of hijacking a cornerstone of childhood nostalgia for a quick dose of clout. Studio accountants suddenly feared a billion-dollar fiasco. And just when you thought the flames couldn't get any hotter, fresh allegations surfaced that Zegler might be suing Disney for sabotaging her entire career. So was this a brave feminist stand or the biggest cell phone in modern Hollywood history? Stick around because we're unpacking the exact moment her stardom imploded, the secret emails leaking from Disney HQ, and why industry power players now call her the actress no franchise can trust. Buckle up, this is about to get messy. All started with a single interview. Rachel Zegler sat down for what should have been a routine promo, smiling, poised, seated next to Gal Gadot, the legendary Wonder Woman herself. But the moment Rachel opened her mouth, the internet exploded. She didn't just tease a modern twist on Snow White, she dismantled the entire fairy tale. It's no longer 1937, she declared, brushing off nearly a century of legacy with a shrug. She said the new version wasn't about love or a prince or dreams. It was about power, about leadership, about a girl who didn't need saving. The backlash was immediate. Fans weren't just confused, they were furious. Viral TikToks tore apart her take. Some called it faux feminism, others branded it disrespectful. One creator's video hit 12 million views overnight, slamming Rachel for mocking a film that shaped generations. They said, not every woman wants to be a leader, not every story has to be rewritten. And calling the prince a stalker? That's not empowerment. That's just shade. And suddenly, Rachel Zegler wasn't just an actress promoting a film, she was a symbol in a culture war she never signed up for, and here's where it spirals. This wasn't Rachel's only bold take, not even close. In another interview, she casually confessed she was scared of the original Snow White. Said she watched it once as a kid and never again. That the ride at Disney World freaked her out. That she had zero connection to the story she was now headlining. For Disney fans, and especially Disney parents, it was unforgivable. How do you play a character you don't even like? How do you reimagine something you never respected in the first place? The casting debates hit long before the princess stalker line ever trended. The very moment Disney announced that a Colombian polished white Latina would portray a princess literally named Snow White, culture war sirens blared. Conservative pundit Ben Shapiro fired first. The character's defining feature is porcelain skin. Disney just erased it for optics. Hours later, Matt Walsh ratcheted the outrage, labeling the decision anti-white appropriation. Within a day, #NotMySnowWhite racked up hundreds of thousands of tweets. Meme pages plastered Rachel's head onto every viral woke fail template, and legacy animation forums lit up with side-by-side screenshots of the 1937 princess versus Zegler on the D23 stage captioned, "Spot the difference." Behind closed doors, Disney's PR war room flickered with red alerts. Executives feared a Little Mermaid-style backlash, only bigger, theme park parents threatening boycotts, right-wing channels spinning hour-long rants, mainstream morning shows sniffing for controversy. Crisis consultants drafted talking points. Embracing diversity, honoring the spirit, modern heroine. But before those statements could even leave the building, Rachel went rogue online. She tweeted, "Appreciate the love, but please don't tag me in nonsensical discourse about my casting. I truly don't want to see it." 2 lines equal parts gratitude and mic drop, and she slammed the door on debate. Then she posted childhood photos of herself in princess costumes captioned, "Every kid deserves to see themselves in a crown." On Instagram, it played as vulnerable. On Twitter, it landed as defiant. Screenshots bounced around Telegram groups. "She's calling you nonsensical." The backlash upgraded from annoyed side-eye to full-scale pitchforks. Inside Burbank headquarters, one executive reportedly muttered, "We can sell a modern Snow White, just not if the lead keeps trash-talking fans." Brand-loyal influencers, who'd been gearing up to defend the remake, suddenly went silent. No one wants to champion a star trending for the wrong reasons. Industry insiders whispered about emergency reshoots and PR muzzle clauses. Rachel Zegler had become a liability, and the film was still a year from test screenings, yet instead of retreating, the actress doubled down. In back-to-back red carpet interviews, she reiterated that the remake would skip the love story, crown Snow White a leader, and banish any damsel narrative to the 1930s. To Disney traditionalists, that sounded like a wrecking ball aimed at the vault itself. To Rachel, it was progress. To everyone else, it felt like the opening shots of an all-out franchise war, where one misquoted soundbite could nuke a billion-dollar brand. And here's the kicker. Just as the casting uproar hit peak volume, a single TikTok dissecting her quotes rocketed past 12 million views, labeling her stance pseudo-feminism. It accused Disney of force-feeding empowerment cliches while alienating the very girls who once twirled around in Snow White dresses. The comment section read like a live feed. Referendum on Rachel's career, but the storm was only gathering strength. Up next, the moment she calls the prince a straight-up stalker, drags the entire 1937 storyline, and unknowingly lights the fuse that might blow her Hollywood future to ash. Just when things almost started to settle, Rachel dropped the quote that would define the downfall. It was a casual sit-down with EXTR-TV, the kind of fluffy promo moment that's supposed to be harmless. But instead of playing it safe, Rachel took aim at the very heart of the Snow White myth. With a smirk and a shrug, she joked that the prince wasn't really a hero, he was more like a stalker. The clip went viral in hours. Not just in the film world, but everywhere. Parenting blogs, political channels, Reddit threads. The outrage wasn't just about disrespecting a fairy tale. It was about what it represented. To longtime Disney fans, calling the prince creepy wasn't progress, it was mockery. A whole generation raised on the idea of true love's kiss now watched the new Snow White toss it aside like a joke. Even Gal Gadot, seated next to Rachel, looked visibly uncomfortable, and Rachel didn't stop there. She implied he might not even be in the movie, said something vague about cutting him out entirely. Then she added sarcastically, "It's Hollywood. You never know what'll happen." That line alone sent rumor mills into overdrive. Was Andrew Byrne cast as the prince, being axed? Was this a feminist fairy tale or just a slow-motion franchise? Train wreck? From there, the reaction turned nuclear. The son of Snow White's original 1937 director, David Hand, gave a scathing interview. He didn't hold back. "It's a whole different concept, and I just totally disagree with it. I know my dad and Walt would also very much disagree. He wasn't some random YouTuber. He carried legacy weight. And when he said the remake was offensive and disrespectful to the original vision, it echoed across media headlines. Suddenly, this wasn't about woke versus traditional or casting decisions, it was about heritage, legacy, and whether Rachel Zegler was torching it for applause. And just like that, the conversation shifted from, "Is this a good idea?" to, "Is this unsalvageable?" Internally, Disney was spiraling. The studio that built its name on fairy tales now watched headlines like, "Rachel Zegler mocked Disney's legacy. Snow White's remake has no prince, no love, no heart." How one actress became Hollywood's biggest liability. The interviews were supposed to promote magic. Instead, they became warning signs. And the deeper Rachel doubled down, the more fans pulled away. And yet, the drama was far from over. Because next came the bombshell that took it from PR disaster to potential courtroom battle. As the internet caught fire over the prince stalker remark, casting backlash, and non-stop controversy, the unthinkable happened. Rachel Zegler's name started trending with a new word beside it. Lawsuit. Reports began surfacing that Rachel was allegedly taking legal action against Disney. The claim? Wrongful termination, gender discrimination, defamation. According to sources close to the situation, Rachel's team believed she was being systematically removed from future projects, not just by Disney, but by other major studios, like Sony, Lionsgate, and Paramount. Projects she'd already been contracted for were suddenly going quiet. Roles she'd verbally secured were now reconsidering. At first, fans assumed this was just industry damage control. But then came whispers of a real legal battle brewing behind the scenes, and that's when public opinion truly began to split. Some saw her as a young actress being scapegoated for Disney's failed PR. Others said she brought it all on herself, and worse, that she was now playing the victim. But here's where it got messier, just as the Snow White fire kept raging. Rachel's other major franchise, The Hunger Games, threw her right back into the spotlight. She played Lucy Gray-Baird in The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, a role meant to revive one of Hollywood's most profitable IPs. But fans weren't ready to forget. Social media threads read like battlefields. One viral tweet with over 80,000 likes simply said, "Boycott all Zegler movies including Hunger Games, we don't forget." It wasn't just backlash, it was fan fatigue. Too many quotes, too much drama, too little humility. For many, the magic was gone. Even worse, it turned out Rachel didn't even want the Hunger Games role at first. In a resurfaced interview, she admitted to turning it down not once, but multiple times. Why? Because she didn't want to leave her close friends for the filming schedule. That quote didn't land well. Fans saw it as entitled, detached, like someone who didn't understand the gravity of what she'd been handed. And when the original Katniss, Jennifer Lawrence, was brought up for comparison, everything boiled over. People weren't just annoyed now. They were protective, defensive. It felt like Rachel wasn't just mishandling one legacy. She was casually fumbling two dots, so now the question is no longer, can she save her image? It's, how many franchises can one rising star damage before Hollywood finally says, enough? And we're not even at the worst part yet, because coming up next is the backlash over her strike comments, where one sentence during a moment of industry pain left even her fellow actors calling her out, while actors across Hollywood stood on picket lines in the scorching sun demanding fair pay, straining residuals, and basic respect. Rachel Zegler made a statement that would ignite a whole new level of outrage during a press stop amid the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes. She boldly said, "If I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it's streamed online." On paper, it might have sounded like a stand for labor rights, but in context, it landed like a tone-deaf missile. The reaction was immediate and brutal. Thousands of working actors, many of them fighting to make rent while juggling 2 jobs and background gigs, flooded the internet with scathing replies. "We're out here risking our careers. She's complaining about wearing a dress? Try grinding for $200 a day and then talk." This is why people think all actors are entitled. Even industry veterans joined in. Her quote was clipped, reposted, stitched into TikToks, and ripped apart in Reddit forums. And the worst part? It gave critics fuel they desperately wanted, the image of a privileged, out-of-touch star complaining in the middle of a historic labor struggle. Rachel, once seen as the relatable girl next door who won a breakout role in West Side Story, was now being branded something far worse, ungrateful. A celebrity who couldn't read the room. A rising star whose every public statement seemed to dig the hole deeper. And this time, the backlash wasn't just coming from fans. It was coming from inside the house. Other actors, crew members, people within the industry who were done giving. Her graced out suddenly being the face of 2 major franchises wasn't a flex, it was a liability. The kind that could sink press tours, alienate audiences, and poison box office numbers before a film even drops. So now the question isn't just, is Rachel Zegler controversial? It's more dangerous than that. Is she radioactive? And, the answer may lie in the final, most damning twist of all, a timeline of her own contradictions, her past quotes versus her sudden apologies, and why many fans now believe her downfall wasn't sabotage. It was self-inflicted. At this point, fans weren't just angry. They were confused, because while Rachel Zegler was out front defending her choices, clapping back at critics and insisting she'd always been grateful, her own words kept pulling the rug out from under her. In one breath, she'd say how much playing Snow White meant to her. In the next, she'd casually admit she was terrified of the original film and avoided it for years. 1 week, she called the 1937 cartoon outdated. The next, she posted throwback photos of herself in Disney costumes with captions like, "I've dreamed of this since I was a kid." In interviews, she said she didn't even realize she was auditioning for Snow White, that she only figured it out halfway through. But then, months later, she gave an emotional speech calling it her greatest dream role. Even her hunger. Game's story didn't add up. First, she claimed she turned down the part because she wanted to stay close to loved ones. Then she admitted she regretted it immediately and tried to get back in. But fans started asking if you loved the role, why walk away in the first place? These weren't just minor flip-flops. They were fundamental contradictions. And online sleuths started compiling them, side-by-side videos, tweet receipts, timelines of her interviews. The story they told, a pattern of spin, of walking things back, of saying what sounded good in the moment. And forgetting the internet never forgets. One TikTok even labeled her the PR disaster of the decade. Harsh? Maybe, but it went viral. To many fans, it started to feel like Rachel Zegler didn't know who she was trying to be. A bold truth teller? A humble newcomer? A legacy-honoring fan? A feminist reclaimer of old narratives? The truth? She tried to be all of them, and ended up convincing no one. What should have been a breakout moment, starring in two of the biggest franchises in modern Hollywood, had turned into a masterclass in how to burn goodwill faster than it can be built. And as the strike died down, the tweets cooled and the trailers started rolling out. Audiences were left with a new kind of question. Not will Rachel Zegler bounce back? BUT, will anyone still be watching when she does? Because in a town where legacy is everything and likability is currency, Zegler may have already spent hers. Rachel Zegler didn't just get cast. She got chosen. By Spielberg, by Lionsgate, by Disney. She was handed the keys to two of the most iconic franchises in film history. The kind of roles actors dream of their entire careers. And for a moment, it looked like she was about to become Hollywood's next untouchable, the triple threat starlet with the voice, the face, and the perfect PR arc. But here's the twist. The downfall didn't come from a scandal, a leaked tape, or an arrest. It came from her own interviews. Her own words. It came from misunderstanding that being outspoken isn't the same as being strategic. That power without pacing turns to noise. That sincerity without consistency turns into confusion. And that, when millions of people want to love you, it doesn't take much to make them feel pushed away. Rachel Zegler didn't get canceled. She got exhausted out of the spotlight. Now, studios are cautious, fan bases are fractured. And her name, once said with so much promise, now carries a question mark. Not because she didn't belong in the spotlight, but because she wouldn't stop speaking into it, even as it burned. So what happens now? Maybe she finds a new voice, a new lane. Maybe the industry forgives. Or maybe she becomes a cautionary tale whispered about in meetings, studied by PR teams, and remembered not for the role she played, but for the legacy she almost had.